With the debut of new Scarlet and Violet Pokemon in the Pokemon TCG, the Pokemon Company promised to increase focus on comebacks in the Pokemon trading card game. But Scarlet and Violet base set didn't really have any cards that did that, which left many of us confused. Our upcoming set, Paldea Evolved, due out June 9th, seems to make good on this promise with plenty of comeback cards, which makes this set very exciting. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing Paldea Evolved, which is going to contain cards from Japan's Triplet Beat, Snow Hazard, and Clayburst sets. So let's get right into it. Let's take a look at this new Abomasnow. It is a 150 hit point grass stage 1 Pokemon with a retreat cost of 3. It's got the ability Catastrophic Freeze, which reads damage can't be healed from any Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. So a nice little anti-healing tech as the game continues to evolve and slow down with various stage 2 Pokemon becoming playable. Cards like Abomasnow might start to see play. In the golden age of the Pokemon TCG, thin 1/1 lines or 1/01 lines of Pokemon used to see play as tech cards to help certain matchups. In current standard format, there's a lot of one-hit KOing going on, so stopping your opponent from healing their Pokemon isn't really a viable strategy. But I can imagine one day down the road where this kind of card could see some play. It's a useful ability in some situations. Let's check out the new Chen EX, a basic grass-type Pokemon with 230 hit points. It's got a hefty retreat cost of 4 and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Devouring Ivy, costs 2 grass and a colorless energy, and it does 60 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken. So it ramps up as the game progresses. If your opponent has taken 3 prize cards, you're going to be able to do 180 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, which one-hit KOs support Pokemon like Lumineon V. And then its second attack, Forest Burn, costs 3 grass and a colorless energy, and does a solid 220 damage. 220 is the modern day magic number. If you want to knock out most basic Pokemon V, you have to do 220 damage. I think the most interesting thing about this card is obviously that first attack, being able to pick off Pokemon on your opponent's bench is always useful. The question is going to be, where does Chen EX fit in to standard formats? What kind of archetype would be able to use this card most effectively? You could pair Chen EX with the new Fortress EX, which knocks itself out and then accelerates a bunch of energy into play. Giving your opponent 2 prize cards would power up Devouring Ivy and then allow you to really attack those threats on your opponent's bench. So that would be an interesting combo. You could also use Chen EX in Lost Box Giratina V-Star decks, since Giratina V-Star also uses grass energy. At the end of the game, you could bench Chen EX and use Mirage Gate to accelerate energy to it, and then pick off a multi-prize Pokemon on your opponent's bench. That'd be pretty neat. Cetitan is a total unit. This Pokemon is awesome. I love this artwork. It's totally epic. Cetitan standing there looking magnificent in the snowy landscape with the sun in the background. This is an awesome card for Gym Leader Challenge format. Gym Leader Challenge format is a custom Pokemon TCG format. You can find all of the rules at gymleaderchallenge.com. It's my favorite way to play Pokemon cards because Pokemon like Satitan get to shine. Satitan has 180 HP and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Icicle Missile, does 50 damage for a water and a colorless, and then Special Horn does 80 damage plus 140 more damage if this Pokemon has any special energy attached to it. So Satitan pairs really well with the Wailord that has the special wave attack, which does more damage if that Wailord has special energy attached to it. There's a lot of synergy there. You could build a water-type Gym Leader Challenge deck that utilizes special energy to boost your Pokemon's damage output. Also, 180 hit points is very tanky in Gym Leader Challenge format, and considering that this Pokemon is just a Stage 1 Pokemon, it's pretty easy to get into play. 220 damage, also one-hit KOs just about every threat that you're going to encounter in Gym Leader Challenge format. So I really like the synergy between Satitan and Wailord, and I think that there's some promise for a special energy-focused water-type deck here. Valuza is a basic 130 hit point water-type Pokemon with 2 attacks. Its first attack, Ram, does 20, just a little poke. And then Fillet Corkscrew, cost of water and 3 colorless, and does 120 damage. But if you've got no hand, you can use that attack for 1 water energy. I don't think that playing without a hand is worth it to do 120 damage for just 1 energy. Pokemon like Cramorant can spit innocently for no energy. All you have to do is have 4 cards in the Lost Zone. So I think that Valuza is kind of a funny haha card and not actually any good, because having a hand is just something that you're going to want to have. Rain Dance is back, and Bax Caliber is bringing it back. Bax Caliber has 160 hit points and the ability Absolute Zero, which reads, as often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic water energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. So you can attach as many water energy as you can draw into to your Pokemon in play with Bax Caliber. Now, these kinds of Rain Dance style abilities have seen success in the past, but not in a long time. There was the original Blastoise from Boundaries Crossed, which saw success alongside Black Kyurem EX, Paldea EX, and eventually evolved into a World Championship winning Archie's deck that was kind of turboed out, and you could get Blastoise into play on the first turn of the game. It was kind of nutty. And then there was also Raybor, which used Embor's Inferno Fandango ability to accelerate fire energy onto your Rayquaza EXs to take big one-hit knockouts. But there hasn't been a real dominant Rain Dance style deck in quite some time. We've seen Stage 2 Pokemon that accelerate energy into play that have been successful. There's Vikavolt, which was paired with Rayquaza GX. There was Rillaboom from the Sword and Shield block that was used to accelerate energy onto Pokemon like Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX, and that saw a decent amount of success. But those Pokemon accelerate energy from the deck. We haven't seen a true Rain Dance style ability that has seen widespread success in quite some time. And I'm really excited for Bax Caliber because it seems like the format is evolving into a place where these kinds of Stage 2 strategies will be able to be successful again. And Bax Caliber seems like it's going to have a lot of support in our upcoming Paldea Evolved set, like with this Chempowex EX that we have right here, which we're going to look at in just a moment. Bax Caliber is also the new most powerful Rain Dancer that water decks have access to in Gym Leader Challenge format. So, sorry, Blastoise, it's been a wonderful 10 years, but Bax Caliber is just that new Pokemon on the block. It's got 160 hit points where Blastoise only has 140. Its attack Buster Tail does 130 damage for 3 energy, where Blastoise has to have like 7 energy attached to it in order to do 130 damage. So Bax Caliber, in a lot of ways, is just a power-crept Blastoise from Boundaries Crossed. But that Blastoise was released over a decade ago, so I think that's okay. And some water decks may choose to play both Blastoise and Bax Caliber, since they both have the incredible Rain Dance style ability. Chempowex EX. Would you just look at those teeth? How does Chempowex EX eat dinner? I mean, how do you even snack on some food when your fangs are literal daggers that are over a foot long? It doesn't make any sense. It's not really, logical. But that's okay. Chempowex EX has 220 HP and the Trembling Cold ability, which reads, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may search your deck for up to 2 basic water energy and put them into your hand. Then its attack, Hail Blizzard, costs 2 water energy, and you can discard any amount of water energy from your Pokemon, and it does 60 damage times the amount of water energy you discarded. So Chempowex EX can take massive one-hit KOs, and it obviously pairs really well with Bax Caliber, since Bax Caliber can rain an infinite number of water energy from your hand to your Pokemon in play as you want during your turn. Chempowex EX even searches out the water energy for you with its Trembling Cold ability so that you can get those water energy out of the deck, then accelerate them into play and take big one-hit KOs. I'm definitely getting Blastoise, Black Kyurem EX vibes from the Chempowex EX Bax Caliber combo. I was a big fan of Black Kyurem EX with Blastoise back in the day, so I'm very much looking forward to piloting a Chempowex EX Bax Caliber deck. This deck will continue to get support as well as more water-type attackers get printed, and Bax Caliber can accelerate water energy to any type of Pokemon. So really, any type of Pokemon that needs energy acceleration, Bax Caliber can accelerate to that Pokemon. But Chempowex EX coming in with the firepower for the Rain Dance deck is really exciting, meaning that you will have the option to take massive one-hit KOs with your Bax Caliber deck. Slowking is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. When I saw the movie Pokemon 2000 and Slowking was talking with its brain, I fell in love with Slowking. And then I played Crystal version and I got myself a Slowking. Slowking is sick. I love this Pokemon. Unfortunately, this card is kind of mid. It's a Stage 1 Pokemon EX with 270 hit points, and since it's a terrestrial Pokemon, it's got that little bench barrier effect, which, keeps it from taking damage on the bench. It's got 2 attacks. Its first attack, Profound Knowledge, costs 1 psychic energy, and it does 30 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. And then its second attack, Wisdom Headbutt, costs 2 psychic energy. It does 130 damage, and you can search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. So, Slowking EX could be used in some sort of control-style deck, but honestly, Togekiss VMAX had the same kind of attack and wasn't very good. There was also a Metagross VMAX, which had a similar kind of attack and wasn't very good. And both of those cards honestly seem better than Slowking EX. What Slowking EX has going for it is that it evolves from Slowpoke, and Slowpoke evolves into a bunch of cool Pokemon, like the Slowbro from the Pokemon Go set, and the Slowbro from Scarlet and Violet, which heals damage off of your other Pokemon in play. So if Slowking EX has any legs at all, it'll probably be because Slowpoke evolves into a bunch of cool different kinds of Pokemon. This new Gothatel is really cool. It's a Psychic type Stage 2 Pokemon with 150 hit points. It's got the ability Astrology, which reads, once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, and then you can put one of those cards at the bottom of their deck and one of the cards back on top of their deck. So you get to control the cards they're drawing in a kind of way. And then its attack Psyban does 120 damage, and you discard a random card from your opponent's hand. I really like the idea of this card in Gym Leader Challenge format because it's a card that can discard random cards from your opponent's hand, which is really good in a singleton format where every card in your opponent's deck, except for basic energy, is going to be a one-of card. It also does 120 damage for 2 energy, which is pretty good damage output in Gym Leader Challenge format. You really want to be hitting the 130 number, but with a card like Muscle Band, you can easily push that 120 up to 140. It's got a minus 30 resistance to fighting, and with 150 hit points, it's a pretty formidable attacker. With other control style cards like Delinquent, you could remove your opponent's hand and then kind of soft lock your opponent by controlling the cards that they draw. So I like this card in Gym Leader Challenge format. I think it's a really unique card with a unique effect and could be used successfully by players that have, control on the brain. I do also like this card in standard formats. Gothatel's Astrology ability could be great in control decks for controlling the cards that your opponent draws, putting the useful cards on the bottom of their deck, and then sticking them with cards that don't help them to get out of the situation that they're in. Of course, setting up a Stage 2 Pokemon in standard format in a control deck when Gormandi's Snorlax just rotated out of standard format is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I do think, at least for now, Gothatel will probably see more traction in Gym Leader Challenge format, where the format is a little bit slower and Stage 2 Pokemon really prosper. There's a new Mimikyu with the Safeguard ability. Safeguard prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon EX and Pokemon V. So Pokemon EX and Pokemon V cannot touch the Mimikyu. I think that Safeguard is relatively useful in some situations. Control decks love a good Safeguard Pokemon, but Safeguard Pokemon have been really underwhelming lately. I mean, Miltank has seen some success in Blissey decks, but that's about it. In decks where you try to make your Pokemon as difficult as possible for the opponent to knock out. But there are so many different ways to get through Safeguard, even on Rulebox Pokemon, like Mew VMAX can just Max Miracle straight through Safeguard. We've got Duraludon VMAX can just G-Max Pulverization straight through Safeguard. There are a lot of ways to get through Safeguard Pokemon right now. EX decks also have a really easy time getting through Safeguard Pokemon. If you just look at Gardevoir EX decks, they play both Gardevoir EX and the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, which means that you'll always have an option to hit through a Pokemon like Mimikyu in a deck like Gardevoir EX. Mimikyu does have an attack, Ghost Eye, which places 7 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon. All in all, I think Safeguard Pokemon are in a really underwhelming spot in standard format right now. Can we just all take a moment to appreciate this teacup right here? This might be the best artwork in the set. I'm not even capping. This is incredible. Sinistea evolves into Poltergeist, which has 70 hit points and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Antique Collecting, allows you to put up to 2 in any combination of item and Pokemon tool cards from your discard pile into your hand. You can see where the game designers are going with this. I see the pieces to a control deck brewing. You've got the Poltergeist, which gets items back from your discard pile. You've got the Gothatel, which controls your opponent's top deck. Okay, it's all starting to take form, but will it be any good? I don't know. We're going to have to ask Sander. I'm a big Glamora fan. I didn't know I was a Glamora fan when I played through Scarlet and Violet, honestly. I saw this Pokemon floating around and I didn't think much of it. But now that Glamora's got a Pokemon card, I'm a big Glamora fan. This fighting type stage 1 Pokemon has 130 hit points and the awesome Crystal Break ability, which reads, when this Pokemon is knocked out, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent can't take any prize cards for it. That is awesome. I love prize denial. Fantastic. And then Floral Spite for 1 fighting energy makes it so your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned and they take 6 damage counters instead of 1. This card could be quite good in fighting type Gym Leader Challenge decks. Fighting type decks love a tanky stage 1 Pokemon that attacks for 1 energy. It's just the vibe in fighting type Gym Leader Challenge decks. Glamora fits the bill just right. It can deny prizes. It can soften up Pokemon. With cards like Verbank City Gym, you can increase the amount of poison damage that your opponent's Pokemon takes even further, which is very cool. All in all, Glamora is a very cool Pokemon, and it could see some success in fighting type Gym Leader Challenge decks. In standard format, you could create a very frustrating deck for your opponent to deal with, playing 4 Glamora, right? And then you just keep promoting Glamora and poisoning your opponent's Pokemon. I'm not exactly sure that this is going to be the most successful strategy in standard format, but maybe it could make for a funny haha deck. Man, it feels good to be back. Night March is back, or Lost March, or whatever kind of marching you prefer. We got it back, and now it's bird-themed. Wings of Union. We've got 3 different Pokemon with the Wings of Union attack. There's Murkrow, there's a Flamigo, and Wattrel. Wings of Union does 20 damage times the amount of Pokemon you have in your discard pile with the Wings of Union attack. And since there are 3 Pokemon with the Wings of Union attack, that means that you can have 12 Unionizers in your discard pile, which means that you can do 240 damage. Now, you might be thinking, Andrew, how are you going to attack if all of your Union members are in the discard pile? Well, I'm glad you asked. The Ditto from Pokemon Go can copy their attacks and use them even if they are in the discard pile, which means that you can do 240 damage for just 1 darkness energy. And that's pretty cool. With damage modifiers, you could get up to 270 damage with a choice belt. So maybe this deck will be good. Maybe. Or maybe it'll just lose to Lost Box. While we're here, I'm going to take a minute to talk about this Bronzor. He's nice. He's got 70 hit points, a retreat cost of 2, and the mirror draw attack, which allows you to draw cards until you have the same number of cards in your hand as your opponent. I actually think that this is going to be the new optimal Bronzor in Metal-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. And that's one of the fun things about Gym Leader Challenge format, is that you can always keep your eye out for new little guys that can help your deck. Now, there are some pretty good Bronzors to choose from. Most notably, there is the Bronzor with the Evolutionary Advantage ability, which reads, if you go second, this Pokemon can evolve during your first turn. It's only got a retreat cost of 1, and it has 50 HP. If I'm being honest, I think that this Bronzor with the Mirror Draw attack is much better than the Evolutionary Advantage Bronzor. You rarely get to use Evolutionary Advantage effectively, and even if you do get to evolve Bronzor into Bronzong on the first turn of the game, you rarely have Metal Energy in the discard pile that then you can accelerate into play with Bronzong's Metal Lynx ability. I think that having the ability to draw cards with just 1 Metal Energy if you happen to open Bronzor is much stronger. And then 70 hit points is also really nice. Nothing like a huge 300 hit point elephant in the room. Copperajah EX is an absolute house. This thing is massive, gargantuan, mammoth, all of the above. It's got the ability Bronze Body, which makes this Pokemon take 30 less damage from attacks. It is a Stage 1 Pokemon with 300 hit points that takes 30 less damage from attacks. This thing is going to be really difficult to knock out. Then it's got the attack Nosequake. That's pretty funny. It does 260 damage and 30 damage to each of your benched Pokemon. That is a massive attack on a massive Pokemon. You could power up Copperajah EX in a Lost Box deck. Lost Box decks are already playing Zamazenta for its Retaliate attack. So they're already running Metal-type Energy, and playing a Copperajah EX wouldn't be a problem at all. It also gives you the option to do a massive amount of damage, and it gives you a Pokemon that's not easily KO'd in return. So I think Copperajah EX has got some real potential. This Pokemon is probably just too big to fail. Earthworm. I'm not going to lie. When I was playing through Scarlet and Violet, I did not like Earthworm. It's a gross worm Pokemon. But now that Earthworm has a Pokemon card, I'm starting to come around. This dude is really cool. He's got 130 hit points, but he can have much more. The Nutritional Iron ability reads, if this Pokemon has 3 or more Metal Energy attached, it gets plus 100 HP. So this little worm can actually be a really big worm if you have 3 Metal Energy attached to it. It can have 230 hit points, and then its attack Shoot Through does 100 damage for 4 colorless energy and 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. I don't think that Earthworm will be any good in standard format, but in Gym Leader Challenge format, this thing's got some legs. No, it doesn't. It's a worm, but it's got potential. Earthworm's got legs? Those are not... Holy smokes, it's got legs. This should be illegal. Earthworm can be paired with Galarian Berserker, which has the Steely Spirit ability, which makes your Metal-type Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That raises Earthworm's kind of middling 100 damage output to a much more respectable 120 damage. Then if you attach a tool card like Fighting Fury Belt to your Earthworm, it will be doing 130 damage, and you give it 40 more hit points, meaning that your Earthworm will have 270 HP. That's a big worm. And I think that that's going to be really fun in Metal-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. Dun-dun-dun. Sparse. Wow. I can't believe my dude Dunsparce really glowed up and got a nice extra lump added to his body. How cool is that? Dunsparce is a nice basic Pokemon. It's got 70 hit points and the Find a Friend attack. Finding a friend is nice. Always nice. You get to search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Not quite as sick as the legendary Dunsparce from Sandstorm with the Strike and Run attack, which put 3 basic Pokemon straight onto your bench, but still respectable. Finding a Pokemon for 1 energy is a welcome attack to help you set up. And then the Dunsparce has 140 hit points and the Mud Slap attack, which does 30 damage. But we're really here for Sudden Flash. 4 colorless energy, 100 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Then you shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. When the Dunsparce was first revealed, everybody was talking about potentially teching this card into your Lugia V-Star decks, and why not? You can easily power up Sudden Flash with double turbo energy that you accelerate into play with Archeops, and Paralysis is really good. It can just stick your opponent for a turn if they don't happen to have a switch card, and then they went and revealed Therapy Energy, which Archeops can just accelerate to any Pokemon and completely heal all special conditions from it. So I'm not exactly sure how good the Dunsparce is going to be. It's an interesting card with an interesting effect. We've seen these kinds of hit and run style paralysis effects see success before, but I think that ultimately this strategy of inflicting special conditions and trying to stick your opponent, I think that strategy is played out at this point. Articuno decks have seen their success, and there are more ways than ever to heal your Pokemon of special conditions on the horizon with Therapy Energy, so I think this kind of strategy is more or less played out at this point. Pelipper is an extremely handsome bird with 120 hit points and the awesome Wind Letter ability, which allows you to search your deck or your discard pile for a supporter card and put it into your hand when you evolve Pelipper into play. This is a really useful ability. It can allow you to reuse supporters from your discard pile. It can allow you to search out supporters to use for turn if you want to just get your deck going. I think that Pelipper could certainly find a home in control decks that want to reuse supporters from their discard pile, but it might also start to see play in other kinds of standard decks that want to find supporter cards like Colress's Experiment. Slacking. Everybody's favorite lazy and also angry Pokemon. He's got 180 hit points and the Back to Bed ability. You can always count on Slacking to have some sort of clause that keeps it from attacking. That's just kind of the thing. Back to Bed reads, during Pokemon checkup, if this Pokemon is asleep, you flip 2 coins instead of 1. If either of them is tails, this Pokemon is still asleep. Who doesn't love sleeping on the job? And then its attack, Lazy Headbutt, costs 3 colorless energy and does 240 damage. And you guessed it, this Pokemon goes to sleep. Now, this Slacking probably won't be worth playing in standard format. At least the way that standard format is designed right now, it's still being run by Lost Box, Pokemon V-Star, and Pokemon VMAX, with some of the new Pokemon EX sprinkled in. Maybe one day in the distant future that changes. But in Gym Leader Challenge format, this Slacking is pretty good. It's got 180 HP. It one-hit KOs everything in the format with its insane Lazy Headbutt attack. And it has access to a whole bunch of different special energy to power up that attack. Personally, I think that 240 damage is a little bit overkill in Gym Leader Challenge format. You don't actually have to do 240 damage very often to deal with most threats in GLC. I'm still a fan of the slacking from Celestial Storm with the lazy ability, which makes it so that so long as slacking is in the active spot, all of your opponent's abilities don't work. And then it's got critical move, which does 160 damage, and it can't attack during your next turn. Slacking is a powerful Pokemon. I mean, this is just a powerful card, and this is a nice slacking as well. They're both great options in Gym Leader Challenge format. Squacability EX is a very handsome bird Pokemon. There have been some awesome new bird Pokemon in the Scarlet and Violet games. I'm really excited for this new Squacability EX. It's got the ability Lively Draw, which allows you to discard your hand and draw 6 cards on your first turn of the game. That's really cool. It's a great way to kick off the game. It doesn't end your turn, and you can only use one Lively Draw ability. So a great ability for helping you to set up. It kind of helps you to skirt around the no supporters on the first turn of the game going first clause. So it gives you a little kick to get that game going, and can help move cards to the discard pile if you're playing like Gardevoir EX and want to get Psychic Energy into the discard pile. Stuff like that could be very good for that. If you're playing the new Wings of Unity or Union Wings or whatever deck, it can help you to get your Wings of Union Pokemon into the discard pile. It's also got the Energy Flow attack for 1 colorless energy. It does 20 damage, and you can attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So not only does it help you to draw cards, you can get energy into the discard pile and then accelerate those energy into play with the Energy Flow attack. Squacability EX is a great support Pokemon, very versatile, and being a colorless Pokemon means that you can splash Squacability EX into any kind of deck and start accelerating energy as early as the first turn of the game. Super Rod is getting a reprint in Paldea Evolved. It's an item card that allows you to shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your deck. Hooray! This little in-between formats where Ordinary Rod had rotated and there was no item-based Pokemon recovery. It was a little bit awkward having to rely on Clara and Miriam in order to recover Pokemon. Is just a little clunky. Everybody loves a nice Rod card. Now, Super Rod has been around for a long time. Neo Genesis, actually, but it used to do something way different back then. Super Rod, as recent as Breakthrough, allowed you to shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. Now, what's important to note is that the text on Super Rod is changing. The way that it used to read, it did not say up to, which meant that if you had 2 Pokemon and an energy in your discard pile and you wanted to play Super Rod, you had to shuffle all 3 of those cards back into your deck, since the up to text was not included on the card. With the new Super Rod, the up to clause, which has been printed on most of these kinds of item cards in the Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet era, has been added. So with the up to clause on Super Rod, it probably means that all of your old Super Rods are going to get an errata, which means that they all operate in an up to fashion now, which just makes this card better than it used to be, since you have more control over how you play it. So Super Rod's getting a buff. Nice. Motivational Lemonade is an item card that you can only play if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, and you get to heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. I really like the card design of this. Pokemon said that they were going to work on incorporating more comeback strategies into the Pokemon TCG with the Scarlet and Violet set, and printing more cards that can only be played when you are behind on prizes plays into that. So I like the design of this card, and I think it's really neat. Grusha is everybody's favorite snowboarding gym leader. It is a supporter card that allows you to draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand, but if you have no energy cards attached to any of your Pokemon, you draw up to 7 cards instead. I really like the design of this supporter card. It's really unique in that it works as a draw card, even if you have energy attached, but in certain kinds of decks that maybe don't rely on energy being on their Pokemon, or in certain kinds of decks that want to have explosive starts before they get energy into play, Grusha could be very good. I am thinking maybe control style decks could play Grusha. It really comes down to what kinds of strategies will be able to utilize Grusha the best. But this is a unique effect. We've never had this before, and filling your hand to 7 is a very strong effect. So I like the design of this card, and it is very unique. Guacamo is a new supporter card that allows you to discard a special energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon. I love special energy hate. You know, ever since they printed that Lugia fella and the Archeops, more cards that get rid of special energy, yeah, can't get enough of them. Snow Mountain of Disaster is a new stadium card that reads, whenever a player attaches an energy from their hand to one of their basic non-water Pokemon, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. That's a little situational. Really? You had to limit it to basics? Couldn't even be evolution Pokemon? It's okay. I'm not in love with it. Reversal Energy is a new special energy card that provides 1 colorless energy while attached to a Pokemon. But if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, and this card is attached to an evolution Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box, it provides 3 of any type instead. This is a very balanced card. They said, you know what, maybe we shouldn't give this kind of explosive energy to Pokemon V-Star, Pokemon V-Max, and Pokemon EX. And I agree with that. More power to the single prize Pokemon. That's what's up. And the comeback potential, I love it. The design of this card is great. This is one of the reasons why people are so excited about this upcoming set. It seems like Pokemon is really getting back to their roots with their card design philosophies and creating interesting back and forth games, which is something that the player base has been asking for quite some time. Now, Reversal Energy will probably be good in standard format. It'll also be good in Gym Leader Challenge format. Cards like Counter Energy already see a lot of play, and Reversal Energy is just another more powerful counter energy that can only be attached to evolution Pokemon. I'm really looking forward to seeing the kind of strategies that unfold thanks to Reversal Energy. There's a cute new Jumpluff and Skiploom in Clay Burst. They both have the Float Away ability, which makes it so that if any damage is done to these Pokemon by attacks, you flip a coin. If heads, you prevent that damage. Skiploom has the Flower Breeze attack, which does 30 damage and 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. And then Jumpluff has the Fuzzy Wind attack, which does 60 damage and 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. I know there are some grass-type trainers out there who enjoy playing spread-oriented grass decks. There are some spread-style attacks in the grass card pool that jive well with cards like that. The Tracking Shot Decidueye comes to mind. It has an attack that does 80 damage and 80 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon that has any damage counters on it already. So maybe these cards will be played in spread-style grass Gym Leader Challenge decks. Fortress EX is a 270 hit point metal grass nugget thing that explodes. And it's got a pretty cool ability. Explosive energy reads once during your turn. You may search your deck for up to 5 basic grass energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Then you shuffle your deck and your fortress is knocked out. So you have to give up 2 prize cards to accelerate 5 basic grass energy from your deck to your Pokemon. There are some really cool cards being printed that interact with how many prize cards you have or whether or not you're ahead or behind on prizes. So I do like that Fortress EX allows you to play into those strategies. You can force yourself to go behind on prizes so that you can unlock powerful items and supporter cards and accelerate energy into play and create a dominating board position that then you can use to overwhelm your opponent. That's the idea anyways. These kinds of abilities have existed in the past, mostly on Electrode, okay? Electrode is kind of the king of knocking himself out and then accelerating energy into play, but it's time to share the exploding orb position, okay? Electrode can't hog it all for himself. Now the exploding orb goes to Fortress. I'm excited to see what Fortress can do in our upcoming standard format. They keep printing Spidops cards. I can't for the life of me find out why. GUNE EX is a basic Fire-type Pokemon EX with 190 HP. It's got 2 attacks. Its first attack, Burning Envy, costs 1 fire energy, and you discard 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. And then Flame Surge for 2 fire energy does 100 damage, and you can choose up to 3 of your bench Pokemon and search your deck for a fire energy and attach it to each of those Pokemon. So this guy is pretty cool. Milling your opponent is always fun, discarding cards off the top of their deck, so maybe it could be played in some sort of mill-style deck. And then accelerating energy into play is also very useful. It does 100 damage, so it can knock out little guys like Ralts. It seems okay. I'm not exactly convinced that this is going to be the best card ever, but maybe the format evolves into a place where fire-type decks really need a Pokemon to get the party started, and Chi-Yu could maybe do that. Raichu is a powerful 140 hit point stage 1 lightning-type Pokemon with 2 attacks. Its first attack, Electric Charge, allows you to search your deck for up to 2 basic lightning energy and attach them to this Pokemon. So perfect for powering up its second attack, Thunderbolt. It does 200 damage, and then you have to discard all energy from this Pokemon. Could be played in Lightning-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. You do have to discard all energy attached to Raichu, but in Gym Leader Challenge format, you got access to both Electric and Flaffy, which can accelerate those Lightning energy back into play from the discard pile. 200 damage is a substantial amount of damage. You're going to be knocking out almost all threats in GLC with that Thunderbolt attack. Raichu won't be playable in standard formats, but Gym Leader Challenge could be a home for this electric mouse. Somebody at the Pokemon Company loves Luxray. They just keep printing this dude. And, you know, I'm not going to complain since Lightning type is my favorite type and my favorite type of Gym Leader Challenge deck. And there are a lot of really good Luxray to choose from in Gym Leader Challenge format. I personally like this one from Ultra Prism. But now with this new Luxray from our upcoming set, Paldea Evolved, it really got me thinking about what the best Luxray is. This Luxray is very good. It's got the ability Overflowing Ray, which reads once during your turn. If this card is in your hand and you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, you may play it onto your bench. So if you're behind on prizes, boom, Luxray on the bench. And this Pokemon is really strong. It's got 150 hit points and the Wild Charge attack, which does 180 damage for a lightning and 2 colorless, and 20 damage to itself. This card is so good, it could be played in standard format as well. We just saw the new Reversal Energy card, which can also be played if you're behind on prizes. So if you're behind on prizes, you can pop the Luxray onto your bench, Reversal Energy, and you're swinging for 180 damage, which is pretty good, especially if you're using Luxray to knock out a Pokemon that's maybe weak to lightning. I do think that this Luxray will have more of an impact in Gym Leader Challenge format than it will have in standard format, since 180 damage doesn't really seem like the magic number in standard format. You really want to be hitting 220, or you want to be hitting one of the most significant attackers in the game for weakness. Like, yeah, Lugia V-Star is weak to lightning, but Lugia V-Star decks have access to Stonejourner, and then you also have the Tyranitar V. So really, you're not going to be hitting that entire deck for weakness with Luxray. I think Luxray is good. This card's awesome. Love the card design that we're seeing on this card. And in Gym Leader Challenge format, you can pair it with cool cards like Magneton, right? And Magneton knocks itself out with its Call Signal ability. So you could use Magneton, knock yourself out, and then put the Luxray into play. And Call Signal allows you to get 3 supporter cards from your deck and put them into your hand. So you could whip up some sort of combo with Magneton where you could get that Luxray into play instantly. So I really like that, and I think it's cool. It's going to be a lot of fun. This Luxray is cool. Bellybolt EX. Belly EX. Belly. This card seems a little bit underwhelming. I'm not sure that it's bringing anything to the table that's going to make it worth building a deck around, but he is handsome. As someone who enjoys playing Mew VMAX, I really not excited to see this card. Spiritomb has a history of having disruptive abilities, and this one is no different. Pitch Black Doom. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be feeling when my opponent puts this card into play. It reads, as long as this Pokemon is in play, basic Pokemon V have no abilities. Yeah, that stings. You know, as a Mew VMAX player, I could deal with a lot. Drapion V, fine. Mightyena, no problem. Path to the Peak, I even play that card now. But Spiritomb, yeah, Spiritomb is doing a lot. You know what? It's been a good run with Mew VMAX, but I think it's actually for the best that we're seeing cards like Spiritomb get printed. We got to push out and cleanse the format of the old overpowered Pokemon V from the Sword and Shield era. Welcome in a new era of Pokemon cards, Pokemon EX, that evolved from single prizers, a slower format with more skill-based decision-making. It's all for the best. That's what I'm telling myself. CLWNNUX says, Mew V is a brain-dead deck. Oh, yeah? Well, if it's a brain-dead deck, then explain why I was able to earn my World's Invitation with it. Tinkerton is probably one of the coolest new Pokemon from the Scarlet and Violet games. I will not be taking any sort of criticism on that take because it is just straight facts. Tinkerton rocks. It's got a hammer. It's pink. It's hardcore. It kills Corviknights. What's not to love about Tinkerton? Tinkerton EX has 300 HP and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Humongous Hammer, does 30 damage times the amount of cards you have in your hand for 2 colorless energy. Now, this is actually a good multiplier. A lot of the attacks that do more damage for the amount of cards in your hand are more like 20 times, but a 30 times multiplier, I feel like we can actually work with that, especially when you combine Tinkerton EX with the Tinkerton from Triplet Beat with the Gather Materials ability, which discards a card from your hand and draws 3 cards. So with both of those Tinkerton, you could see the synergy happening here, right? Use Tinkerton from Triplet Beat to fill your hand, and then you can smack with Tinkerton EX. I like that. And then Pulverizing Press for a Psychic and 2 colorless energy does 140 damage, and it isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. You know how I was saying that the Safeguard Pokemon are bad earlier in this recording? Well, yeah, see? Everybody's got a Shred Attack. Nobody cares about Safeguard anymore. I personally think that this Barboach is really handsome. Wishcash has 2 attacks. Its second attack, Land Crush. You'll probably never power that up. But Rock Wildly, for 1 fighting energy, allows you to discard the top card of your opponent's deck for each fighting energy attached to Wishcash. So maybe, just maybe, there are some Wishcash Milldreams out there. If fighting type Mill starts to get more resources, it could be a Gym Leader Challenge deck as well. But as it is right now, how are we getting all these fighting energy onto Wishcash? And then, yeah, there's a lot of questions I have. But I like this card. It's cool, and the potential is there. All right, hold up. In standard format, you could have a deck with Archeops, and you set up Archeops, and then you accelerate reversal energy onto Wishcash. With 4 reversal energy attached, you're going to be able to Rock Wildly for a discard of 12. All right, now we're cooking, dude. Now we're talking. That's what's up. All right, Wishcash Mill, I see you. I see you. I hear you loud and clear. I think it's going to be a thing. At the very least, a silly deck. Why do they even bother printing cards so bad? You ever ask yourself that? Gargan Ackle is the strongest Salt Block Pokemon ever printed. This card is insane. 180 hit points and the Blessed Salt ability, which heals 20 damage from each of your Pokemon during Pokemon checkup. That means when your turn ends and you pass to your opponent, you heal 20 damage from all of your Pokemon. And when it's your turn again, coming back from your opponent's turn, you heal 20 damage from all of your Pokemon. That's a 40 damage heal back and forth. Gargan Ackle is absolutely insane for fighting type Gym Leader Challenge decks. Yeah, will this card be good in standard format? Maybe, if the format slows down to a point where we're playing thin stage 2 lines again, but we're not quite there right now, maybe in a year or two. As for Gym Leader Challenge format, this card rocks. Get it? It has a great amount of HP, and its attack, Knockhammer, does 130 damage, and you get to discard a card from the top of your opponent's deck. And in Gym Leader Challenge format, all of your opponent's cards, except for basic energy, are going to be singleton cards. So every time you discard a card from the top of your opponent's deck, there's a chance that it might be a very valuable card. 130 damage is also the magic number in Gym Leader Challenge format, since most attackers have about 130 hit points. You can boost that 130 damage very easily in fighting type decks. You've got Fighting Dojo, you've got Muscle Band, Strong Energy. You can make your Gargan Ackle tanky as well. You've got various tool cards that you can attach that decrease the amount of damage your Gargan Ackle will take, as well as stone fighting energy. So I really like the tank and heal strategy of Gargan Ackle, and Gargan Ackle can also heal off all of the damage that some of your best fighting type attackers do to your own Pokemon, like Donphan from Vivid Voltage. Love this guy. He also does 20 damage to each of your bench Pokemon, which is kind of annoying. And Gargan Ackle can just heal all of that, allowing you to Earthquake turn after turn without having to worry about knocking out your own Pokemon. Gargan Ackle is sick, and I'm stoked about this guy. Moose Ting-Lu EX. This card is really good and really disruptive. It's a basic Pokemon EX with 240 HP. That's big, okay? For comparison, Pikachu and Zekrom Tag Team GX also had 240 hit points, and it gave up 3 prize cards when it got knocked out. Ting-Lu EX is a very beefy Pokemon. Being a Pokemon EX, it only gives up 2 prize cards when it gets knocked out. 240 HP is very substantial. It's got the ability Cursed Ground, which reads, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon with damage counters on them have no abilities, excluding Pokemon EX. So what's really cool about Ting-Lu EX is that you can shut down single prize Pokemon's abilities. All you have to do is spread damage to your opponent's board. That means you can stop Bibarel's Industrious Incisors. You can stop Comfey's Flower Selecting. You can shut down any non-Pokemon EX's abilities. That means Genesect V's Fusion Strike System, Archeops's Primal Turbo ability. Any of those powerful abilities that your opponent's deck relies on, Ting-Lu EX can completely shut down thanks to its Cursed Ground ability. It's also got the Land Scoop attack for 3 fighting energy. It does 150 damage, and you get to place 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So it plays perfectly into that Cursed Ground strategy, allowing you to place 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, so that Pokemon's ability won't work anymore. I think Ting-Lu EX is going to really open the door for new ability lock decks to see success, and I'm really excited to see what kind of strategies Ting-Lu EX employs to win games. Weavile is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Of all 1,000 plus Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise, Weavile is one of the nearest and dearest to my heart. However, they haven't been printing very good Weavile cards lately, but this one's okay. It's kind of mid. It's fine. It's got a interesting ability. Hunt Assault reads once during your turn. When this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active spot, you may switch in one of your opponent's benched basic Pokemon to the active spot. So in some ways, it's kind of an unlimited gust, since all you have to do is move Weavile from the bench to your active spot, and then you can bring up one of your opponent's benched basic Pokemon. So that means you can bring up Pokemon like Lumineon V or any bench sitters that your opponent might be relying on, and then knock them out with presumably a more powerful attacker, because Weavile's attack stinks. So you're never going to be attacking with this thing, but it is kind of neat that you can pivot into it and then retreat Weavile and attack the Pokemon that you brought into the active spot. Now, Weavile has a retreat cost of 1. Really wish this card had a free retreat cost. That would make it just that much more viable. With a retreat cost of 1, you will need some sort of card to help the Weavile pivot in and out of the active spot. Unfortunately, Beach Court only helps basic Pokemon, and Air Balloon just rotated out of standard. But maybe we'll get something like Floatstone or Air Balloon printed again soon. Dragon Pokemon are back! They skipped Dragon Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet. You thought we wouldn't notice. We did. Where were they? Taking a vacation? Didn't want to show up for work? That's fine. We've got one Dragon Pokemon, it looks like. Literally one. It's just Noivern EX, which evolves from Noibat, which is also Dragon. Okay, so two. Noivern EX has 2 attacks and 260 HP. Covert Flight does 70 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. Okay. It only does 70. It walls off basic Pokemon. We're entering an age of the Pokemon TCG where evolution Pokemon are becoming more popular than ever, so I don't really think that this attack is very good. If you think about every competitive deck, they pretty much all have options to attack with evolutions, or in the case of Lost Box, you can always escape rope the Noivern to the bench, and then you could always also place damage counters on the Noivern with Sableye. So yeah, like maybe it almost counters Lost Box, but Lost Box has so many ways around that effect. And then Dominant Echo for a Psychic and a Darkness does 140 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, they can't play any special energy or stadium cards from their hand. This is interesting because you can use it to lock Path to the Peak in play or Temple of Sinnoh in play, which is pretty disruptive. Being able to lock a disruptive stadium card in play while also preventing your opponent from attaching special energy is just quite good. 140 damage means you're going to be 2-hit KOing most things in standard format, and Noivern EX also has free retreat, which is a really welcome card stat. All in all, Noivern EX is pretty good. I think this card could see some play. Up next, we have got the most handsome and magnificent of the Wings of Union Pokemon, Flamigo. The best new Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet, in my very correct opinion. It's got the Flock Together ability, which reads once during your turn. When you place this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for up to 3 Flamigo and put them into your hand. That's pretty good, since Wings of Union does more damage for the amount of Pokemon with the Wings of Union attack in the discard pile. You can use Flamigo's Flock Together ability to put your other Flamigo into your hand and then use a card like Professor's Research or Ultra Ball to discard those Flamigo so that you can do more damage with your Wings of Union attack. Flamigo holding the whole team together, pulling the whole strategy together and unifying it, making it possible. I love it. Charm of Courage is a new tool card that gives the basic Pokemon it's attached to plus 50 hit points. My goodness, that sounds familiar. It's almost like we just had a card that did the same exact thing in the Sword and Shield block. This is like Cape of Toughness 2. Saguaro is a new supporter card that heals 50 damage from up to 2 of your Pokemon. I like cards that heal cards. Iono is probably the most hyped supporter card of the last handful of years. I mean, I don't think that a supporter card this good has been printed in a long, long time. Iono is the quintessential comeback card. But remixed. Iono is incredible. It is going to make or break games. Iono is going to be a mainstay in the Pokemon TCG as long as this card is legal. It is a supporter card that reads each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck, then draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. Now, obviously, the comparisons to N are very warranted. I mean, it is a very similar card to N from Noble Victories, but it's like N with a little bit of Marnie mixed in. You have to shuffle your hand and put it on the bottom of your deck. Many decks, almost all decks, are going to play Iono. And not just one of them, probably a few of them, since it's a great draw card early on in the game and an incredible disruption card as the game wears on. I am very excited about the return of this kind of effect to the Pokemon TCG. Pokemon promised comeback effects, and they have delivered on that promise. Let's go. Wilderness of Disaster is a new stadium that makes the retreat cost of each basic Pokemon except for fighting Pokemon 1 colorless more. That's fine. These stadiums seem a little underpowered compared to stadiums that we've seen in the past, like Galarmine is just +2 retreat to everything. This makes it so that only basic Pokemon get their, retreat cost increased. Seems fine. They just don't seem as powerful as stadium cards we've seen before. And then Therapy Energy, exactly what we all wanted. More buffs for Lugia V-Star decks. Therapy Energy is a special energy that provides 1 colorless energy, and the Pokemon that it's attached to can't be asleep, confused, or paralyzed. And if it is, it becomes not that. And it works after the fact. So if you've got a Pokemon that's asleep, confused, or paralyzed in the active spot, and you use Archeops's Primal Turbo ability to accelerate one of these bad boys from the deck to that Pokemon becomes healed of its special conditions. This is a very powerful special energy card. It's going to pair very well with Archeops, who is the best energy accelerator, probably at least printed in the last handful of years, maybe ever. Paldea Evolved will also see the introduction of the Paldean starters with their beautiful EX forms, hence the name Paldea Evolved. First up, we've got Meowscarada EX, a Stage 2 Grass-type Pokemon EX with 310 hit points. It's got the ability Magic Bouquet, which requires that you discard a grass energy from your hand, and then you can choose one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and put 3 damage counters on it. I really like this style of ability that allows you to take knockouts by placing damage counters. We've got Inteleon VMAX, which has a very similar ability right now with the Double Gunner ability. There's Radiant Blastoise. In the past, we had Decidueye GX, which was one of my favorite decks to play. And now getting to see that kind of strategy revived with Meowscarada EX is very exciting. And with energy recovery cards like Superior Energy Retrieval, we'll have more options than ever to recover those grass energy from the discard pile. Its attack, Nail Scratch, jives perfectly with Magic Bouquet. For 2 colorless energy, it does 100 damage plus 120 more damage if your opponent's active Pokemon already has any damage counters on it. Meowscarada EX is really cool, and I'm looking forward to playing with this card. Oricorio is a cool new holo rare with the Passionate Dance ability, which allows you to heal 20 damage from your active evolution Pokemon. So if you're playing a tank and heal style deck, you could have 4 Oricorio on your bench and heal 80 damage from your active evolution Pokemon every turn, which would make it pretty difficult for your opponent to take knockouts. Skeledirge EX has 340 HP and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Vitality Song, does 50 damage, and you heal 30 damage from each of your Pokemon. You know that tank and heal strategy I was just talking about with Oricorio? Yeah, well, maybe Skeledirge is that dude. It's also got the Burning Voice attack for 2 fire energy, does 270 damage, which is a lot. but it also does 10 less damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So you're going to want to heal your Skeledirge, or else it's not going to do a lot of damage. However, if it's at full HP, 270 is a lot. You're just 1 damage buff away from being able to knock out Pokemon V-Star like Lugia V-Star. Look at this extremely handsome duck, Squacability EX. A Stage 2 Water-type Pokemon with 320 hit points and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Lively Samba, does 60 damage for 1 water energy, and then you switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, and your opponent does the same thing. A nice little hit-and-run style attack. And then Propeller Shot for a water and a colorless energy does 230 damage, and you put 2 energy from this Pokemon into your hand. You could pair this attack with healing cards like Cheryl, since it bounces the energy back to your hands. Then the Squacability EX could take a hit. You could play Cheryl and then attach another energy, use Lively Samba, switch the Pokemon to your bench, and you got a neat little strategy going on right there. Wattrel is the 3rd Wings of Union Pokemon, and I do love this artwork. The pastels are very nice. The aesthetics of the Wings of Union deck are top-notch. Wattrel, Murkrow, and Flamigo. The 3 amigos. Love it. Kilowattrel is pretty cool for Lightning-type Gym Leader Challenge decks. It's a Stage 1 Pokemon with 120 hit points, and the Jet Wing attack, which does 150 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon cannot attack, but this bird has free retreat, so you can swing with Jet Wing, then retreat to the bench, no problem, into a new attacker like Zapdos from Team Up with the Thunderous Assault attack, and then you can pivot back into Kilowattrel to swing for 150 damage again. And since the attack cost is pure colorless, you can use any sort of special energy or whatever to help power up this attack cost. So I like this attacker. It's also resistant to fighting instead of weak to fighting, which is nice if you're trying to diversify your Lightning deck's weaknesses. Who doesn't like causing a little bit of disruption, a little bit of chaos? Mismagius has the magical Flick ability, which allows you to move an energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon to one of their bench Pokemon when you evolve Misdrevius into Mismagius. That's pretty cool. Dedenne EX is a Terrastal Pokemon. Just look at that magnificent fairy crystal crown thing and the Terrastal effect, which makes it not take any damage on the bench. Tail Swap costs 2 Psychic Energy, and you get to move all damage counters from one of your bench Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. This is kind of interesting for Gardevoir EX decks, since Gardevoir EX's Psychic Embrace ability places damage counters on your Pokemon. Then you could move those damage counters off of that Pokemon with Dedenne EX. If you want to fully heal one of your Pokemon in a Gardevoir deck, Dedenne can help you do that while dishing out damage in return. This Tinkerton is awesome. I love this card. I got to use Tinkerton in my triplet beat build and battle with Michael Zealy, and Tinkerton hard carried in one of my games. It's got the Gather Materials ability, which requires that you discard a card from your hand, then you get to draw 3 cards. And this Tinkerton combos really well with Tinkerton EX, which has an attack that does 30 damage times the amount of cards in your hand. Tinkerton could be a neat draw option in standard formats, but it's kind of overshadowed by Kirlia with the Refinement ability and the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, which are kind of leading the way with those drawing abilities. However, in Gym Leader Challenge format, Tinkerton could be pretty good, since it's also a solid attacker with the special hammer attack for a Psychic and a colorless energy, does 90 damage plus 90 more damage if Tinkerton has any special energy attached to it. With Dimension Valley in play, you can use this attack for just 1 energy, And with Horror Psychic Energy and Mystery Energy, there are some great special energies available for Psychic-type decks in Gym Leader Challenge format. I really like this card. I think it's cool. And Tinkerton rocks. So, good stuff. Hariyama is a Stage 1 Fighting-type Pokemon with the Supporting Act ability, which makes all of your Pokemon take 10 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. It's like a little underpowered. It stacks. If you've got 4 Hariyama in play, then your Pokemon are going to be taking 40 less damage from the opponent's attacks, but then you'll have 4 Hariyama in play, which doesn't seem like a great way to actually go about winning a game of Pokemon cards. If this was minus 20 or minus 30, then maybe we'd be talking, but minus 10, I think is just a little bit too weak. Lycanroc EX is a fighting-type Stage 1 Pokemon EX with 260 hit points and 2 attacks. Its first attack, Rock Throw, does 40 damage. Then Scary Fang for a fighting and 2 colorless does 140 damage. And during your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon is damaged by an attack, you put 10 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. It's kind of interesting against single prize decks. If your opponent attacks with a Pokemon that doesn't have a lot of HP, then they will be instantly KO'd by the Scary Fang effect. So it's kind of useful for that. But all in all, Lycanroc EX seems a little bit underpowered. Paldea Clodsire EX is a very handsome boy. Look at this dude. 280 hit points and the awesome Poison Bog ability, which allows you to leave your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned if there is a stadium in play once during your turn. So a great way to rack up extra damage on your opponent's Pokemon. This is a cool card. Hydreigon is a very destructive energy accelerator. It is the Destroyer Pokemon, after all. It's got 180 HP and the Try-How ability, which reads, once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and attach any number of energy cards you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like. Cool. Then you have to discard the other cards. Ugh. So if you're trying to get your whole deck into the discard pile, Hydreigon can certainly help you do that. Otherwise, you might want to choose a different energy accelerator. Superior Energy Retrieval is back. This is a great energy recovery card. It's an item card that requires that you discard 2 cards from your hand. Then you get to place 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile back into your hand. This is going to pair really well with the new Bax Caliber and those decks that try to accelerate water energy into play with Bax Caliber, since you can get the water energy back from the discard pile with just 1 item card and then accelerate them all into play at once. Clavel is a pretty cool supporter card for Gym Leader Challenge format. Probably not for standard. These kinds of supporters like Gloria haven't really seen any play in standard format recently, but in Gym Leader Challenge format, they are all the rage. Clavel is a supporter that allows you to search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon that have 120 hit points or less and put them into your hand. And what's cool about Clavel is that it puts the basic Pokemon into your hand. If you're playing a deck like Psychic in Gym Leader Challenge format, you can use Clavel to help you set up, grabbing a couple of Pokemon, like maybe a Ralts and a Dreepy, and you could also grab Marshadow and use its Let Loose ability to shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 4 cards. So I really like Clavel for that. But other than that use, I mean, maybe just Bridget and Gloria are better. All right, who's Getsis pilled? Anybody out here playing Getsis as their boss of choice? Chat is voting. Which boss art are you? We've got 12% Getsis, 19% Cyrus, 37% Giovanni, 8% Lysander, and 24% waiting for a girl boss. Yeah, add me to the 24%. What the heck, man? Getsis Boss's Orders is pretty cool. Gotta say, I love this artwork. Getsis is totally dripped out. Looks fantastic. Artisan Town is a really good new Stadium card that allows you to search your deck for a basic Pokemon, accept Pokemon that have a rule box, and put it onto your bench. This is obviously very good in Gym Leader Challenge, since now every Gym Leader Challenge deck will have the option to play a Stadium card that searches out basic Pokemon. That's great. Really cool. In standard format, this card can help your deck to set up, and if you're playing a deck that doesn't really care about getting basic Pokemon EX into play, then this can certainly help get basic Pokemon into play. We do already have Nest Ball and Battle VIP Pass, which are both seeing a lot of play right now, so I think more likely that standard decks decide to play Mezagoza, which allows you to flip a coin and then find a Pokemon from your deck and put it into your hand if you flip a heads, but Artisan Town is still very good. Lesson Studio is a new Stadium card that makes it so that your Stage 1 Pokemon do 10 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Neat. Now, Jet Energy is going to make Lost Box even better than it was previously. It's already the best deck in the format, probably, and Jet Energy is going to take Lost Box to another level, another plane of existence, another stratosphere all its own. Jet Energy is a special energy that provides a colorless energy, and when you attach it from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, you switch that Pokemon with your active Pokemon. And what Jet Energy allows you to do is you can attach Jet Energy to a Comfey on your bench, which then switches it into the active spot so that you can use Flower Selecting. Then you can retreat the Jet Energy off of your Comfey into another Comfey and then use Flower Selecting again. So it's a switch card and an energy card all in one, which is going to be very good for Lost Box. This is a very powerful special energy, and it's going to see play. Without fail, every block has got some sort of rainbow energy, and in the Scarlet and Violet block, we've got Luminous Energy as a special energy that provides every type of energy when attached to a Pokemon, but only one at a time, just like Rainbow Energy, except the clause on Luminous Energy is that if the Pokemon this card is attached to has any other special energy attached to it, this card only provides one colorless energy instead. So you can only have Luminous Energy attached to your Pokemon if you want it to provide all of the energy types. Luminous Energy is a good special energy card, and you're going to want to play it in decks that can utilize it while fulfilling its requirement, right? That you only have the one Luminous Energy attached to a Pokemon at a time. Players that are fans of Regigigas, yeah, they are hurting right now. Without Aurora Energy, Luminous Energy does not necessarily fix the Regigigas problem, because you can't attach multiple Luminous Energy to the same Regi. But it does make your life as a Regi player slightly easier. I mean, you still have to play basic energy, and Regigigas can accelerate basic energy into play. It makes it better than it was. I don't know if it makes it playable. It certainly makes it better. And then you won't really be able to play this card at all in Lugia V-Star decks, since Lugia V-Star decks play entirely special energy, so the effect of Luminous Energy will pretty much never work. But Luminous Energy is a very good card, and it will most certainly see play.